Okay, everybody, fantastic. Here we are in the final week of the flow. We have been through 3 weeks of the flow and are now entering the synthesis week, week 4 of the flow. And quite honestly, I feel like I'm going to be a little bit sad to leave behind the immersion in the flow. But keep in mind that we keep the flow with us as we move forward now into the fire chakra. So let's not forget, too, that we are also bringing the root with us. So through this whole exploration of the flow, even though we've had a deep immersion into the flow chakra, we need to remember that we do have that foundation, that rootedness, that groundedness upon which we can start to flow with a sense of grace and ease and moving around and through obstacles, or what we perceive as obstacles. So we have been through the root, the flow, and what I want to do in this recording is go through a recap of the flow and some of the essential elements so that as you're putting together your synthesis, you can reflect on these themes from the great big whole rather than from our week-to-week immersion. So if you recall, one of the quotes that I had started us off with was that of this quote from Nietzsche, which is, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." And so this was the quote that framed our flow. And what I would also say is that, yes, we need the chaos, but we also need the foundation. So Markel had brought up such a great example of something that had presented to her within her everyday life of imagining that you have this structure that you're working within, whether it's a work setting, it's a certain situation, and then how do we establish flow within that? So the root and the flow work very well together, and when we have harmonized those two to work with a foundation and flow, we can feel this sense of moving forward. Whereas sometimes when the root feels like it's stuck, it could be for a number of different things. We might have to interject a little bit more flow, a little less structure. Whereas if we have too much flow, we might need a little bit more anchoring. So let's remember both of those two things together and how important it is to bring them together into everything that we do. In fact, as we start to move into the different other chakras, let's recall that we have as our physical foundation root and flow, masculine, feminine, yang and yin. And so that forms the basis. And many times when I see that people have issues, I go back to that root flow dynamic. How is it operating? Are they too stuck, too structured, too stagnant, all of the S's? Or is there too much flow? Some people are all about ideas and not about action and not about grounding these ideas into practicality. So what I feel like the flow has allowed us to do is to examine places that we may have had some stuckness and to allow us to see our lives a little bit differently. So there's, again, this great quote from Mark Twain, which I presented in our weeks of the flow, which is, if you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And people have said this in a variety of different ways. And it's true. It's almost like we need those moments where we just shake things up a bit. So bringing us back to all of the elements of the flow in this beautiful painting by Manami Langerfeld. And so again, bringing us back to what is the whole of the flow? As we think about synthesis, completion, and rounding out all of these concepts, and I use rounding out deliberately here because the flow is circular. It moves, it rolls, it has movement connected to it, whereas the root is a square. It's stable, it's structured, it has sharp edges, it has firm boundaries. And with the flow, not as much. It has a boundary, but it's moving, it's movable, it's flexible, it's semi-permeable in terms of what is allowed to come in and out. So again, thinking of all of the elements of it, and even if you wanted to pause the recording here and portal into your flow by simply looking at this this sketch, this drawing, this painting, and to take some notes more at a symbolic level of flow for you. So to, again, move out of the mind and move into the feeling of flow. What does the feeling of flow bring forward for you? Does it make you very uncomfortable to look at the color orange? Does to have all that drippy kind of flow make you feel like, ooh, it's just kind of messy? Or do you feel like, ooh, there's something here with the rhythm of life and how things are created and birthed, and there's something new and exciting there for me in the flow? So take some time to symbolically, I really want you, I know so many of you have done courses with me where things have been more analytical, and I want to encourage you to start to look at things with both brain hemispheres, to look at it symbolically as well as with structure. So to pause even here symbolically and just really connect to those pieces. When we look at the pinwheel of all the things that flow holds for us, we see lots of different things, right? We see everything from, and we've traversed all of these different topics in varying degrees. And I'm sure that with your partners and even within our live webinar, we had two within the flow, we delved into some of these to some extent, right? And how interrelated each of these things are. And some of these we might feel more called to, that we need more rejuvenation or repair or healing in those areas, perhaps more than others. And that's entirely appropriate and makes sense. Again, to bring us back into what is the body and food structure of flow, we call that, from our anatomy perspective, it's everything that has to do with water and a bit with the low body too. The root is definitely about matter, the earth element, and having structure, having a skeleton, having skin that protects us, having an immune system that keeps us vigilant and primes us for survival. Whereas the flow is about how do we move within that structure. So how do we get things out of the body through the large intestine, through the colon? How do we excrete through the kidneys and conserve water and excrete water? How do we create in our bodies through the ovaries, the testes, the reproductive system? And in this general area, we have the sacrum, which keeps the sacrum together with the hips as the basin that holds our creative elements of our body. It's one of like the larger areas where we have a lot of dynamic activity. From a physiological point of view, again, growth, fat storage, all things fats and oils, whether it means eating fats or having fat on our bodies, reproduction, water balance, all of these things, the cycle of moving things in and out of the body and how important that is. From a nutrient perspective, looking at the fats and oils, looking at water, fat-soluble vitamins, the carotenoids, which I talked about in relationship to reproductive health. I spoke a bit about fish and seafood, nuts and seeds during week 3. And when we think about the healthy flow lifestyle, what does that look like so that flow is not taking you over tsunami style? So going with the flow, things come up. This has been a bit of a tumultuous month for some of us because we've had eclipses, we've had Mercury in retrograde, we've had some full moon significances. There have been a lot of things from a planet perspective that's going on. And so how did you ride the wave of all of that? Did you track your emotions with the moon cycle? What did you find out? How do you rhythm? How do you flow with the moon? And how were your emotions this month? Did you have certain things that you were tuned in, tapped into? Or were you good with emotions where there wasn't anything that really fazed you dramatically? So there is this idea within every chakra that we have our own state of balance, whatever that is. And balance is kind of an elusive word. And so I like to define it per the individual in the moment. What does balance look like? Because you can be a bit overactive, what might look like overactive in the moment, but it's perfectly balanced for the environment and what is required. And so as we move through each of the different chakras, really getting a sense of where do you strike that middle ground? Where is the Goldilocks? Not too too much, not too little, but just right for you. Because there are some times that we just might need a little bit more flow. We might need a little bit more emotion. And then other times we might need a little bit less. It's not as required. We may need to let go of that. So the goal within this deep healing journey is for you to find where that sweet spot is for you. So I mentioned the healthy orange, healthy flow, what that looks like. And I've just verbalized some of that. Unhealthy, where our flow is not moving, it's cesspooling, it's stagnant, it's swirling, it's eddying. We're circulating a lot of emotions within, but not getting those out. And that can come out in so many different ways. It can come out in our eating patterns, in our relationship patterns, being dehydrated, being swollen, and having edema. All these kinds of things. So again, looking at the body in a real symbolic way. What is it telling you? So week 1, again, to refresh your memory, we had themes of creativity, emotions, and relationships. These were the high-level themes. And if you'd like, after I go through each week, you might want to just stop, pause the recording, and take a couple of notes. So in week 4, where are you with your creativity? Where are you with your emotions? Where are you with relationships? What have you learned? Where have you grown? Where have you brought in more flow, less flow? So if you can, just take a moment to survey and see where you're at on these things. I think it's so important to bring a lot of these concepts into practicality. So we can talk about these things very high level, almost like they're one step removed from who we are, or we can embody them and say, okay, was I creative this month? What did I do this month that was different than the previous month or the whole previous year? How did I perform differently with flow? Where did I allow flow to enter into my life in big thematic ways? And then we had week 2, where we looked at the body. We looked at the systems of water and creation. So the urinary tract and kidneys, the reproductive system, water compartments. Are you getting enough water? How is the health of your reproductive system? I provided you with some information about hormones and how important that is and what we can do with things like nutrition. So we went through that. And you might even want to just take a pause here and get clear on, how did I do with these body systems? Did I have anything going on with my water or creative elements during this month? What was I alerted to? What signaled me? Or how can I celebrate the health of these organ systems? Okay, so to look at them again very symbolically. And then in week 3, we spent a lot of time focused on the foods for the flow, so fats and oils and orange foods, and delving into that a bit. And so as I was asking you on the Facebook page, how did you do? Where did you make a shift? Did you have, sometimes just even when I make a post and you see it on Facebook and then you kind of move away from it and maybe you don't interact with it, even that amount of awareness can create a ripple through effect where you might have that in the back of your mind, kind of in your subconscious or even your unconscious. And it might lead to greater visibility and awareness when you go to the grocery store, when you're in your kitchen and you start looking at your fats and oils and you say, wow, Deanna was talking about variety and how important that is. Did I get more variety? Did I try something new here? Or was I eating more peaches? I noticed a lot of you were eating a lot of peaches, or at least that was like the predominant orange food that I had listed on the poll. So that's fun, to see where you've got some visibility into the flow foods and how you brought more of them into your life. So this is the synthesis week. Give yourself some time to ripple through these waters of the big themes, the body themes, and looking at food themes and seeing what is coming out for you. And if you need some structured activities to do that, here are some of the suggestions that I make to you. As you have already perhaps started to feel, is that this has been a pretty big month. And for some of you, it's most likely revealed many learnings as well as challenges. And the challenges are also learnings. So you might want to, if journaling has been your thing going through the course, you might want to go through your journal and just revisit what's come up for you. And perhaps I would take even a highlighter, an orange or a yellow highlighter, and just highlight some keywords. What has come up as a pattern for you? And then perhaps meditate after you've read through your journal and some of your notes. Or you can even go through the Facebook page and scroll through and look at some of the posts and just do a quick meditation, like a 5 to 10 minute pause and silence into some of these things that have come out, and just let yourself sit with them for a little bit and note your body. Note where you have different sensations in your body, what kinds of thoughts are coming through. So this is where the insight chakra meets the flow chakra, right? And I always like to propose some kind of creative physical art form to manifest those insights into. And that might be a doodle in your journal. It might be, you take a piece of clay, and for a long time I used to have these colored bars of clay on my desk, like sculpting clay. And if I was on a conference call, I would just take that clay and just start shaping it. It's like I let my body move while my mind is moving through dialogue in the call. So maybe you want to do something like that with your hands, or maybe, any number of different things. You might even want to do a special, like a song or a special dance, just something to kind of solidify and say, okay, this is how I'm taking these things that I learned and grew from with flow and bringing them into my physical reality. So reflect on your weeks in the flow, create an art form as best you can. And it doesn't have to be something that is witnessed, although if you do want the group to witness it, because I do think, especially after attending the creativity conference, one of the things that came up for me loud and clear was how healing our creative expression can be when it's witnessed by others. So when it's witnessed by others through perhaps even just a static post, through sharing in a group, through sharing with your partner, when there's witnessing, it has the ability to heal the other person or persons witnessing as much as it helps you, because really and truly, creativity is taking the feelings inside of our body and making them visible in whatever art form that is. You might also want to do, if you're more analytically minded, you might want to do a quick check on your flow. And so you can do the whole detox questionnaire just to see how you stacked up on your flow. I had mentioned doing this at the beginning of the flow and now at the end of the flow, just to see how things went. And if journaling, again, is kind of your thing, you might want to make a couple of notes. In addition to having highlighted words that come up for you in doing that meditation, note where you grew in your flow over the past month. What were challenges and how did you grow through those challenges? And you might actually want to state forth what those were with your partner. So, and that kind of completes your flow. And don't forget with the partner, as we move into the fire chakra, what we're going to do, since there have been some ripples with partners in this particular experience of the 7-month chakra immersion, what I'm thinking here is that we let you proactively choose if you would like a partner. And if you're proactively choosing and you email us and you say, hey, Deanna, hey, Heather, I want to have a partner, we will match you with people who want partners. I think what has happened is some people opted out of the partner option early on, and then others didn't say anything either way, but then they either didn't have the time or something happened where they just weren't able to follow up with their partner. But in some cases, the other person really wanted to partner. So what we're going to do is require you to have a little bit more energy and action towards letting us know that you want a partner. And then we will match you in that way. And so we're going to do that before we start the fire chakra. So be on the lookout for the email that goes out asking you to do that. You can do it already and just email info@foodandspirit.com to let us know, hey, want a partner for the fire month. And you can change it. Like, let's just say, for the fire chakra month, so as we move through August, you say, oh, I have the time now. I really want to focus on having a partner. That's fine. But then as we get into September and going through the love chakra, you say, you know what, September's really busy for me. My kids are going back to school. I just don't know if I have the time to have a partner hour allocated. So that's not going to work for me. And for some of you, maybe September is your ideal month because it's more structured because kids are going back to school. So now you've got the time to have a partner. So I want to meet you where you're at. So if you feel like yes to partner, email us. We'll get you on the list, and we will sync people up before we start as best we can with the fire chakra. All right, everybody. Let's bring the flow with us as we move into the fire. The fire is usually a very challenging chakra to move through because it's full of so much activity. It's so much of how we are in the external world, and the flow and the root, they have such strong internal pieces, especially the flow, which is very feminine and internal feeling. So you might feel a little bit of a blaze as we head into the fire. And what I would like you to do is to bring that flow into the fire, because that will help to quell the flames a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed the month of the flow. Give yourself some time to synthesize, to reflect, to complete, and bring the flow full circle. Thanks, everybody. See you in the fire month.